This is a video presentation submitted by Ajibola Bupelola Miriam with student number 220-72337. The course name or title is Early Childhood Pedagogy and Practices. Now, I will start this presentation by defining the term pedagogy. Pedagogy simply means a method of teaching. Or we'll say that it is how a teacher presents a lesson in the class. Or we'll say a teaching style that a teacher adopts in the classroom. What was my concept of pedagogy before now? My concept of pedagogy before now is such that is teacher-centered. Basically, what I did prior to now was to instruct. The classroom environment is such that the children are limited in their exploration. The activities are centered around the teacher's instruction, being me. So basically, there's no room for the children to explore, no avenue for children to explore their imaginative skill. The class has less materials. The environment is not inclusive. What I mean by that is there's a separate class where children with special needs are attended to. So basically, this is my practice before now. But my mindset changed when I came to the UK to study. And when I got engaged in this particular model, I discovered that the ideal teaching style should be such that should be children or child-centered. A pedagogy that allows children to explore. A pedagogy that values inclusivity, where everyone works and learns together without separation. A pedagogy that gives value or that lays emphasis to materials, that fosters better or fine motor skill, materials that engages the five senses. I also discovered that the environment has to be deliberately prepared because the environment is the thought teacher. I also understood the concept of spirituality. This is an avenue where children are in tune with their environment, their spiritual being. These were the concepts I came to understand in my engagement with this model. I structured out my 3 values, which are number 1, spirituality, the second one being inclusivity, and the third one, hands-on learning or practical learning. Now, I was inspired by these 3 values from the Montessori method of education. I'll start with the first value being inclusivity. What do we understand by inclusive education? Inclusive education is a pedagogical concept or approach that encourages everyone to work together in the same space. It is a pedagogy that gives value to everyone. Everyone is important. There's no segregation. There's no separation. It gives room for everyone to thrive and flourish. I was inspired by Montessori's approach to this. The Montessori method of education, as regarding to inclusivity, is such that provides a nurturing and supportive environment for children of all abilities and learning style. Montessori believed every child was unique, and this includes children with disabilities, the neurodivergent, as well as those with physical disabilities. Any children with learning differences in reading, writing, spelling, maths, ADHD, and autism spectrum disorder. Montessori laid value on diversity and inclusion. Children who found themselves in the Montessori setting and are with special needs thrived because of our value for inclusive learning. Another approach where I got this inspiration of inclusivity from is Reggio Emilio. This pedagogical approach supports inclusive education and encourages children with special needs. He emphasized the effectiveness of fostering children's development through inclusion. This approach created and fostered collaborative environment between students, teachers, special educators, and parents. Communication in Reggio Emilio's classrooms allowed children with disabilities to learn leadership skill, empathy, and responsibility. In his words, he said, "Some children have special rights." I'm going over to my second educational values. The second one being hands-on learning. Hands-on learning, or it can also be called practical learning, is a pedagogical approach that promotes personal experiences by becoming an active participant. This makes the learner an active participant one, and also the benefit of this approach is such that it makes learning fun, stimulates creativity, and engages the five senses, also improves fine motor skills, and also experiences, brings about recovery or the child being able to recall whatsoever activity he or she had performed. I was inspired to pick this particular value from three pedagogical approaches. One is the Froebel's approach, Frederick Froebel's approach. According to him, he said, play is the highest expression of human development, for it is the free expression of what is in the child's soul. Frederick Froebel valued the importance of practical activities. He drew on his own personal mathematical and scientific knowledge to develop a range of materials that fosters better or fine motor skills and also engage the children's five senses. These materials are one, gift, and the second one, occupation. Reggio Emilio is also another person that lays a lot of emphasis on hands-on learning. In his approach, children kept a task going. That is why his method is called the project-based approach. Rudolf Steiner is another believer of hands-on learning. His class, excuse me, basically gave room for children to work. He believed so much in play, and he believes in also role play. Also, Rudolf Steiner also encouraged children to inspire children to be imaginative. This takes me to my third value, which is spirituality. Spirituality is when one connects with the internal part of one. It is the interconnectedness of being part of a greater whole. This approach enables children to think differently and innovatively. It also makes the children to believe that they are not just here on earth. There is a being, and that there is a feeling of a place called the universe. Rudolf Steiner is one of the founders or major believers of this particular approach. He developed a concept or a movement called the anthroposophy movement. This movement was based on the idea that moral, spiritual, and creative sides of a child needs as much attention as their intellect. Maria Montessori, she also believed in the spiritual being. In her words, she said that education is the process of awakening the divine creative powers within the soul of each person, enabling the individual to contribute to the cosmic plan to fulfill their destiny. I also got this inspiration from Frederick Frober's approach. Excuse me. He believed that spirituality can be found in everything, and that outdoor learning is essential for the development of children. Now, this takes me to comparing my pedagogical approach and how the areas of this approach that are not part of my values. Number one, I appreciate Rudolf Steiner's approach to play. Also, he's also a believer of inclusive learning and also lays a lot of emphasis on spirituality. Frederick Frober also encourages the use of fine motor expression, social participation, and free expression and creativity. In line with his spiritual education, he also believes in the promotion of spirituality in schools. He also valued the aspect of inclusive learning where children work together. From Reggio Emilio's project-based approach, it is clear that he's a believer of inclusive learning. He's also an encourager of spirituality and also believes in getting children on a particular task, such as gardening. Going over to what's my contrast, the things I wouldn't want to take from these approaches. The first one is Rudolf Steiner. I do not agree with the aspect where he said children are not allowed to read, or they are not able to read until they are 7. I believe children should be taught how to read early enough. I've had to experience this personally on my own in my profession, and I discovered that children who tend to be given the opportunity to read late end up having problems with spelling. I also disagree with the Montessori's approach that does not give room for imaginative play or role play. I personally grew up having this mindset of role play. I had a role play when I was growing up, and it facilitated my understanding of the world, Also, it brought about my imaginative skill. In conclusion, my pedagogical approach henceforth is such that in conclusion, the best practices are those that put the learner's interest above all else, the kind that actively rather than passively engages the learner, the kind that allows learner to freely explore their environment, the kind that activates the five senses, the kind that encourages, inspires, and accommodates everyone, regardless of who they are. And I'm going to say this in conclusion that Montessori gave this statement or said this. She said the greatest sign of success for a teacher is to be able to say the children are now working as if I did not exist. Thank you.